Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine.
I'm Philip Emeagwali. To invent or to discover is to make the impossible possible. In the world of supercomputers, to invent a new supercomputer is to make the impossible to compute possible to compute. The most important element of the computer is its CPU, the acronym for Central Processing Unit, or processor for short. The processor is where the computer computes. In November 1982, in a conference auditorium that was a short walk from the White House, Washington, D.C., I gave a scientific lecture on how to massively parallel process and on how to communicate and compute across a new internet that is a global network of 65,536 commodity off-the-shelf processors. My scientific lecture of November 1982 was dismissed offhandedly. I was mocked and ridiculed and accused of embarking on a grandiose and overreaching supercomputer research. Back in November 1982, it was impossible to harness 65,536 commodity processors that were identical to each other and that were equal distances afar and apart from each other. It was impossible in 1982 to harness those processors as one seamless cohesive unit that is a new supercomputer de facto. Fast forward 7 years to the 4th of July of 1989, the day that I made the experimental discovery that later entered into the June 20, 1990 issue of the Wall Street Journal. I was in the news because I experimentally discovered how to couple exponential computing with exponential global network of 65,536 commodity processors to experimentally discover an exponential computing speed increase of a factor of 65,536. I began supercomputing at age 19 on June 20, 1974 at 1800 Southwest Campus Way, Corvallis, Oregon, United States. My parallel processing supercomputer research of the mid-1970s did not have solving the toughest problems in computational physics as my predetermined objective. On the other hand, my massively parallel processing supercomputer research of the early 1980s had extreme scale computational fluid dynamics as my computational testbed or as my predetermined objective. Please allow me to briefly explain how I topologically discovered the parallel processing supercomputer that is not a new computer per se, but that is a new internet de facto. My drawing of the hypercube on two-dimensional paper became, to me, its lone wolf programmer, what the lyrics is to the lone singer-songwriter. I partially drew the blueprint of my global network of 65,536 off-the-shelf processors. That blueprint represented my new internet. My illustrations of my new internet was partial because it was impractical for anyone to draw a 16-dimensional cube and draw it by hand and draw it to include its 1,048,576 or 1 binary million bidirectional edges that connected its 65,536 or 64 binary thousand vertices. My visualized complete illustration of my 16-dimensional hypercube, that is the cube in a 16-dimensional hyperspace, had 16 distinct colors. That 16-colored illustration of the hypercube in the 16th dimension was inspiring and extraordinarily handsome. That 16-colored illustration of the hypercube revealed the internal beauty of the modern supercomputer that communicates and computes in parallel and communicates with a one-to-one correspondence between a vertex of a hypercube and a commodity off-the-shelf processor, and communicates with another one-to-one correspondence between the bidirectional edge of a hypercube and an email wire. That geometric discovery enabled me to reduce the complexity of my email communications and reduce that complexity from a factor of 65,536 to a factor of merely 16. That was how I topologically discovered the parallel processing supercomputer that is not a new computer per se, but that is a new internet de facto.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.